Hi, it's Sharon from SharonTheReader.com. This video is on Whitney Houston, and it will bring you from, I would say, the age of 12, 14 to the end of her life. A lot of people, when they connect with me, they actually talk quite a bit. They will almost chronologically bring you through their life. She didn't do that. She showed you a lot of things, and she would have said maybe something here or something there, but she didn't talk a lot through it. She had a very soft voice. She was a very soft person. But there was a tough side to her as well, and that was kind of, I need to look after what I want. I'm going to bring it from the age that she first showed me, and I would say that was maybe 12, 14. And the only thing I could say about that time, looking at her, watching her, running around, having fun, and she did laugh a lot, was that she just gave me the impression of someone who had just stepped out of a shower and got into their jeans and t-shirt. So she was very casual in her dress, and it really suited her. She had the most amazing skin, and her hair just seemed to sit perfectly, no matter get out of the shower, you throw it in a certain way. Her hair was just run a comb through it, and she was perfect. The next thing that I was open to be shown was a very, very, very close friendship with another girl. And I wouldn't say Whitney Houston was a person who was bisexual, but she did have a sexual relationship with this particular girl, and they were very close. They seemed to be friends, they seemed to be lovers, they seemed to be everything that two people should be. It seemed to really work for her, and I think she would have been quite happy with that. But for some reason it stopped at a certain point, and her life continued in a different direction. So one of the other things that was very plain was she seemed to have come from, we don't see so much of it today, or maybe it's just me, I don't see a lot of it today, people going to church. She did go to church, and she went to church on a religious basis, and she also had a very strong belief in her God. Although further down as she was showing me her life, it got very messy, and I mean very messy. The religiousness that she'd been brought up with, or her God, if you want, her religion, was not something that she ever put away. It was something she kept very close to herself, and never once really turned her back on it. So that was quite interesting. Then the next thing she showed me was, here's a girl that when it started out, when she showed me herself at 12, 14, whatever age that was, it was jeans, t-shirts, it was very casual, runners. I don't even think high heels were there. Till suddenly she's now been preened in a way of looking a certain way. And that certain way was very sort of princessy. The dresses, the type of clothes, the makeup, the hair, all of that. It was like she had to step into this other person, if you want to call it that. And that was for the music. That was basically on the music. So they really had an image in mind for her. And she said she worked 2 years with that image. And it was an image that was kind of put on her as opposed to her looking for that. I don't think she really wanted that image. But to gain what she got, this was how they wanted to present her. When I looked at the two, the one I probably personally would have been drawn to would have been the young, fresh jeans, t-shirts, no makeup. That would have got me more. I think she looked I think, personally speaking, I think she looked beautiful then. And I'm not saying she didn't look beautiful as Whitney Houston, the singer, the entertainer, but for me personally, it was too shiny. So that was done for a reason, and that was done to promote an image, and promote it certainly did. She said both things, when you're being put into a person, which sounds a very strange way of putting it, but made to be a certain type of person, and it's not really who you are, then you're left with like a dual identity. And that to her was a little bit of a problem, because the real person was actually very down to earth, no frills, fun, laughter, basically, I suppose, like most of us normal people, not a star. But the other part that she had to adapt to, and this is where her problem came in a little bit, was that she had to become the star, Whitney Houston. And I think that double identity was something she didn't like, genuinely didn't like, but went along with, because without it, she couldn't have been the Whitney Houston that they wanted to produce to the public. She said her marriage, when she did get married, she says she married for life. That was her thing. And it seemed to come back to the religious thing again. You married, you remained married, you remained faithful, you remained true to the person you married, and you stayed with that person for the rest of your life. And she said that was something that she tried her very, very, very best to do, but found it impossible. She said it came to the part where she could just no longer remain with her marriage. And she knew for herself that there had to be changes, that she had to walk away from it. And they both were having affairs, she said, within the marriage. But she did say that she felt that she was being taken down by him, by her husband. And yet, I would honestly say that there was still something between them. There was still something that kept them both kind of like glued together while being miles apart. I don't think she would have ever went back into the marriage again. That just wasn't up for grabs. But basically where she was coming from was the marriage was over. Just like people know their marriage is dead. She knew it was dead. She then brought me to different stages of her life, and it was, what do you do? One, you're on stage, you're playing, you're performing, you're on, as the word would be. And then the next thing is, and she would be referring back to her marriage at this stage, you're a wife, you're a mother, and that seemed to be not in the reality world, in the sense that you can't come off that cloud where you are here and come down and be a normal person down here. Although she did try hard to, she said it was virtually impossible, because you just cannot come from the cloud to the floor. And she said that is where a large part of the problems came in. And that's where a large part of the drugs came in as well. And it wasn't the beginning of the drugs. And the drugs didn't begin when she became Whitney Houston the singer. They were in before that. But they were played with. They weren't seriously upsetting her life in any shape or form. She then brought me to the day of her death. And this was very strange to me personally, because I am not a Whitney Houston fan, and that's not putting anyone down who is, or it's just we all have different tastes in music. So the only song that I really, and maybe if I was sitting in the hairdressers or in a cafe, maybe if one of her songs came on, I may know it. But the only one I really remember was the one from The Bodyguard, and I never watched The Bodyguard the whole way through, so I can't tell you the story of it. But I do remember that that's the one that was plugged everywhere, whatever it was called. But it was a really good song, and she really performed it very, very well. But she said that she's in this hotel room, and she showed me the room, and it was a suite. It wasn't a room. And a woman, and this was someone she knew and trusted, right, came in, and she had two guys with her. And the guys were dressed, in suits and shirts, ties, things like that there. Seemed to be very nice people. She said the woman said that they were big fans of hers, and she'd been talking to them. She said that she was with Whitney. She could introduce them. So that was how the three of them came into the room. She said the woman then went on to make her, Whitney Houston herself, a cup of coffee. And the two guys said no, they weren't interested. They just wanted to speak to her to get to know her, whatever. The other thing that happened was, she said she drank the coffee, and this was a very strange part. This was the part that I couldn't understand. Was she drank the coffee, and then she felt a little bit lightheaded, then she felt dizzy, and then everything went black. It was just black. So what she was showing me was the coffee was the thing that actually blacked her out. And also the thing that struck me was the two men she didn't know, she didn't recognize. She just simply thought that there were people who were interested in her music, interested in her as a person, probably fans, maybe their wife being fans or something like that. The woman, that was totally different. This was someone she knew and had known for a long, long time. So there was complete trust there. The next thing she said she remembered was black. Everything became black. And that would have been where she probably had passed out, I assume. To being held down in a bathtub. And she said it really didn't take a lot to hold her down, because she wasn't, it's like, if you get a tooth out and you're given gas and you're coming around, but you're not completely around. Well, that was where she was coming from. She was then starting to kind of come back, but there wouldn't have been very much strength. It would have taken a while. And it didn't take a lot to hold her down. So that was actually how she met her death. She said she was very close to a lot of the people who had let her down. And also that no matter what, no one was talking. So I'm assuming quite a few people knew about this, but no one said anything. They kind of knew to be quiet. The other thing she said was Clive Davis, who she entrusted with virtually everything in her life. She said when she kissed him, that is what you call a Judas kiss. So there was absolutely no love at that point for Clive Davis. And she said he's a person that you have to be very careful with. She felt very safe with him. He'd been with her for years. Everything was wonderful. He picked her up when she was down. What happened is, when you're of no benefit anymore, when you are going through a really bad time and it doesn't look like you're coming out the other end, and I think with that she was referring to drugs. Basically, you're not bringing in the cash anymore, so we can dispense of you. And that was something that she put on to Clive Davis. I do remember a little bit about him, but not through her. I remember that he talked, I think, on the Woodstock video, and he was talking, I think, about Janis Joplin, who possibly had a different experience entirely with him. But Whitney Houston did not have or you got the feeling she did not feel that this was a person she would ever trust. I'm not sure whether, obviously she would have went on, I assume, being herself, and this is only my assumption here, this is just me talking, this isn't anything she told me. But I will say one thing, I think that she was and could only go on with drugs in her system, and then clean up, and then back in the drugs, and then clean up again. And I don't think that that was a life that, when I look back to the young girl of 12, 14, 15, whatever age she was, that was not the life that I would have expected. I really wouldn't have expected that for her, because she was just so vibrant, so fresh. And that's the only thing I can keep saying about her, was she was so fresh. To see her in that room with these people was not the life that I would have expected. Not for her. But having said that, no one knows what anyone's life has in front of them. So, not being a fan, but being respectful enough, I will say one thing. She was a lovely, sweet person, and not because if you see stars, it's because the camera's on, it's because the flash is going. It's them putting out this persona. That's not what I got. What I got was just a lovely person, full of fun, open, and at the end of the day, most certainly did not consider herself a star. You know, she didn't come in that form. She came just as if someone you would have sat down and had a cup of tea with. So that was Whitney Houston. I'm sorry I can't give you other things, because basically this lady didn't talk a lot. She showed me more than she talked. And I hope that if you were a fan of Whitney Houston or whatever, you know, you can get something out of this. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, have a great day, enjoy, and I'll speak again soon. Take care. Bye.